Alright everyone, welcome back again to more Misericorde Volume 2 White Wool and Snow. It looks like Hedwig's investigation continues forward, along with the obstacle that is Eustace, who is still a pain in my neck. I will never like her. I don't care. She is a very terrible manipulator. She knows and likes to get what she wants, and currently as we continue along this story, it's only going to get worse for Hedwig, I believe. But if anything else, we're here to continue on with the story and see how it plows on through. So if anything else, I hope you all continue to enjoy. Thank you again for your love and support. And here we go. Ta. Now you and Margaret better not go smashing these before I get a chance to put them back in the cloister. We won't. I'm only teasing. Goodness, what's wrong? You look lost. I have had a very long day. I'm worried about how the others see me. Charity blinked. She looked as if she hadn't been expecting such a straightforward answer out of me. Of course, it wasn't really so straightforward. But I'm sure it must have seemed like a radical departure from my previous meekness. My real feelings, of course, were always one shelf higher than the ones I was happily displaying. Everyone thinks you're lovely, Hedwig. What on earth are you talking about? Just odd feelings, I suppose. Ah, I see. Are you worried the new sister's supposed to have some of your attention? Oh, that's just how it goes, my dear. Well, no, not exactly. No use hiding it. The new ones always get a little extra. Everyone likes new things, new and shiny, don't they? I don't think that's true. Of course it is. You don't waste time with me and Marta, do you? I'm not offended. We're old and boring. But that's fine. Marta and I have each other. Anyway, the new ones are a bit young, aren't they? Things might not change for you at all. Oh. Good. We wandered back to the cloister where the superior was still standing and shouting. I should spend more time with you and Marta. Only if you want to. We wouldn't want you to miss out on having proper fun. Well, Marta might, but she can be a bit of a curmudgeon. But she gets her fill of young folk from Flora, and that drives her mad, so... Oh, speak of the devil. Catherine had wheeled Flora in front of the superior, and the two were arguing heatedly. All I asked was that you tried. That's a stupid bloody thing to try, so I won't. Catherine slipped away from the wheelbarrow to speak with me in Charity. What are they bickering about? Soup asked her to try standing up. She did not. I'm afraid so. Flora is holding her own, though, so as you can see... I've heard nothing but complaints from you about the wheelbarrow. I thought you'd relish the opportunity. To what? Fall over in front of everyone? Fine, stay in the bloody wheelbarrow. As if it's my choice. I just want things to look perfect when they get here. Well, I apologize for breaking my fucking leg. I should have thought about that before. Enough. The superior caught my eye suddenly and shifted her attention immediately. Hedwig, go tidy your desk in the library. I wasn't about to argue with her. Yes, your reverence. See? That is the manner of respect I want to hear from you all. No argument, no questions, just doing as I ask. I scurried away to the stairs. I entered the library and hurried to my desk, unsure of how exactly to make it any tidier, but willing to waste some time figuring out to avoid embarrassment downstairs. I strained the ink pots and quills and attempted to make some of the book piles more stable, but earnestly, there was not much that could be done to improve the space. I fussed with it as much as I could until the door burst open. Oh gee, I wonder who that is. And there she is. Eustace entered looking harried. Hedwig, what are you doing here? I realized I had never left to my own devices in the library before. The door had been unlocked on my way in. She must have already been attending to something. The superior told me to tidy my desk. Why? What the fuck do you mean why? She asked. Who cares? Go talk to her if you have a problem. Oh god, I hope the new oblites aren't going to be working in here. I don't know. She just demanded I go and I didn't want to argue. She's a bit high-strung. I hadn't noticed. She sighed deeply. She wanted me to check on the sword. It's still there just like I told her. I suppose that's an important thing to keep track of. Yes, it's part of my job as a sacrist. Not that it matters to her. I found the stream. That's grand. I couldn't help but be annoyed by her demeanor. For someone who had threatened me with great retribution not long ago, Eustace didn't seem to particularly care that I was, as far as she knew, doing exactly what she had demanded of me. Are you done with your desk? I think so. Good. Go see if the superior needs anything else. I need to run a real quick shelf inventory. You know, asking this question is so dumb because we already know what she's gonna say. You don't want any help? No. I swallowed what I wanted to say to her and left. She could fuck herself on her bloody shelves for all I care. I jogged back down the stairs. Look at me now, Catherine. And raced into the cloister, but nobody was there. I could hear voices echoing from the direction of the workshop and gate, where the carts to the village had been prepared many days ago. So the oblets were here. I ran to catch up with everyone. I could see them crowded around a horse-drawn carriage, but I saw no new faces yet. I could hear the bishop's voice, although he was too far away to understand. One of the black shapes turned around. The superior had heard my footsteps echoing through the archway. She walked over to me briskly and whispered hoarsely, "Where were you?" "Cleaning my desk as you asked." "I didn't think you'd need that long." "Never mind that. Where's Eustace?" She was in the library as well. She mentioned something about inventory." "Go back and get her." My God, this is a disaster. I glanced behind her. Everything seemed quite calm. She can organize her books later. We have new sisters to welcome. Go, go! Back and forth. If I were her, I'd just drag Eustace out of the library. I don't care what she's doing. I'd be like, look, the superior wanted me to take you, so let's get the hell out and, follow as she says. You can complain later. I bolted away and dashed back up the stairs to the library door. I prayed that Eustace's hand locked it behind her. Mercifully, the door swung open when I pushed the handle. I entered the room hastily. "Eustace? Eustace!" No answer. Oh, perfect. Let's go. I've been wanting to go into the back of these libraries and see what it was about. What she's hiding. I peered into the rows of shelves. There was no obvious sign of her. I crept forward. I knew that she was very precious about her books and wanted me nowhere near the back of the library. "Eustace? The superior is looking for you. The new oblets are here and she wants all of us there to greet them." "Eustace?" I was beginning to get irritated. "Are you ignoring me? I know we've been arguing lately, but I'm trying to do exactly what you asked. New oblets are here. A time to redouble our efforts as an abbey, just like the superior said, yes?" "I'm willing if you are." Still nothing. How rude I thought she was being. "Where are you, Eustace?" I had wandered further into the shelves than I had intended to. No, that's okay. We're gonna keep wandering. It was very dark here. So dark that I could barely see the spines of the books surrounding me. As I pressed forward, I stumbled. I looked down and saw that there were many books scattered across the floor. The shelves surrounding me were a mess too. It looked as if she had torn through them looking for something. I was tempted to pluck something from the shelf and flip through it just to spite Eustace. "Please do, Hedwig. Please." But I thought better of it. Shucks. I suppose that whatever she was doing was part of her system and that inventory was messy work. No, it's clearly obvious she's hiding something. She threatened you, she threatened your life, she threatened a lot of things. At this point, you may as well check. I peered into the dark one last time, then turned around to head back. Leaving felt much faster than entering. I must have been quite hot-headed. I left the library and let the door slam. The superior looked livid when I returned without Eustace. Luckily, the bishop was still talking, so my return did not cause any incident. I made as apologetic a face as I could and whispered to the superior, "I have no idea where she is. I looked all through the library and couldn't find her." "Really? That little gutter snipe?" "You sure? You checked everywhere?" "She can get lost in her own head sometimes." "I looked all over and shouted her name. Nothing." "Huh. Perhaps she went to the latrine?" "Perhaps so." The superior took a deep breath and appeared to calm down. If only Eustace could see me here defending her from the superior's wrath. My work was so unappreciated. You know what's even better is that you actually got to go into the back of the library. I wish you went further in though and just looked around. The bishop finally finished talking. I realized that the carriage doors hadn't even opened yet. The cart's driver looked bored to tears. How rude, I thought. This was to be a very important moment in two young women's lives. Then again, I suppose the bishop had been speaking for a while. I could see the other sisters all shifting on their feet uncomfortably. It is my honor to welcome 2 new sheep to Limbarrow Abbey's flock. I present to you, Bridget and Violet. He opened the carriage door somewhat awkwardly. There was a smattering of light applause of 2 young women practically tumbled out onto the road. Whoa. That's funny. One of them was tall and reedy, and the other was stout and round. They steadied themselves and stood up looking flustered. It wasn't half stuffy in there. Aye, why'd you wait until you were done going on and on to let us out? We've been in there for weeks, feels like. The bishop chuckled. I suppose I got away from myself. Too right. I'll be nice to him. We're oot now. The pair of them had very strong accents. The superior stepped forward, her arms outstretched. She was beaming. You wouldn't have thought she had been irrationally furious moments ago. Welcome to Limbarrow Abbey, my children. She kept walking forward, and the young oblates seemed to intuit that the superior meant to embrace them. They allowed her to, although neither of them looked particularly thrilled. Right, that's enough of that, I think. She pulled away from the superior, who looked somewhat taken aback. Margaret leaned over to me. Looks like we might have 3 floors now, huh? These 2 seem like total terrors. Perhaps they're just tired from the journey. The whole congregation moved together to the archway and back into the abbey. The bishop waved the carriage driver off. When the reins cracked, the shorter oblat twisted around. Hold up. Me things are still in there. Your things? You weren't meant to bring anything. You'll have everything you need here. Aye, but I wanted to bring some keepsakes and the like. Go on and stop him. Hey, Mr. Carriage Man. No. Well, what happens to all my things then? I can write a letter to the diocese and make sure it gets returned to whoever it needs to. That'd be here, with me. The bishop placed his hand on the young woman's back and steered her into the cloister. The taller girl had fallen silent since stepping out of the carriage, but she grabbed their friend's hand and squeezed it tightly. Now, Limbarrow Abbey was built many years ago, funded by an anonymous benefactor who wished to bring the work of God to the hills of England. The village of Limbarrow, known for its vineyards and livestock, made for a perfect setting to... Why is it so far up the hill then? Please raise your hand to indicate you have a question. Sorry, but why is it so far up a hill? Because it gives our cellars the most consistent temperature for winemaking, or so I'm told. Well, both. It has stood for almost 100 years and has served its community through stewardship, prayer, and of course, the aforementioned winemaking. Limbarrow's wines are some of the finest in the country. If you're... Yes? Violet had raised her hand. Is the wine expensive? I do not have exact figures on hand, but I would safely assume that it fetches a fair price for its quality. In fact, famous dignitaries and royal emissaries have, in the past, sought out Limbarrow's wine for their stocks. Why is this place in such a state then? Half the walls look like they're falling to pieces. Yes. Well, 100 years is a long time, and the weather has indeed taken a toll. But not to worry. In fact, there are builders on the way who will arrive quite soon who have been charged with the upkeep of the abbey. Oh, well that's good. Superior continued giving her tour, gesturing from her position in the middle of the cloister to the library, the dorms, her office, and so on. She had clearly put a lot of thought into this. I wondered if it would have received the same treatment had I been in any other oblat, or if this was the new idea she was given a chance. It was hard to focus on her words. Where had Eustace gone? To hide her evidence of whatever it is she's trying to, maintain? I glanced around at the others. Angela was present. I hoped to God that Eustace hadn't already discovered that the workbook had gone missing. What would happen when she inevitably finds out that someone had pilfered it? That would be the first person she would think of, naturally. Angela caught my eye and gave me a little nod. Curses. Why oh why had I agreed to this plan? Eustace was likely tearing my dorm to pieces right this moment, pawing through all of my useless evidence. And then she would tear through every other room until she did find it. And she would find it in Angela's room, and then... Sister Hedwig? Yes? I inquired as to whether or not you would be available in the coming days to show our new charges your work. Bridget has expressed keen interest. Oh, yes, Superior, of course. I would be delighted. Very good. Now, if you would follow me into the chapel for ceremony. We passed through the cloister and into the chapel. The Superior took the pulpit and gestured for all of us to line up in front of her. The bishop stayed standing with the 2 new oblats, the new sisters facing the ode. Catherine was pushing Flora, and it took a moment for her to get into position. Welcome to Limbarrow Abbey, Daughters of God. Now that you have been given a preliminary overview of the Abbey and its history, I would like to introduce you to your new sisters. Sister Angela, your prioress. Sister Hedwig, our chronicler. She went down the line introducing all of us simply and efficiently as she could. This was far more regimented than the experience I remembered in the rectory. And finally, Sister Flora, who I believe is nearest in age to you two. How are you, Hen? What? She's asking how you're doing. No, I understood that part. I just think it's a bit obvious how I'm doing in it. Oh, I'm gonna love this interaction. Was just trying to be nice. Oh yeah? Try that. I love them both already. She held out her middle finger. Violet followed suit. Sisters, please. You've had a long journey and are likely to need a rest. Of course. Once these two have been shorn, they can be left with the sisters to be shown around the Abbey at their leisure. Shorn? Moira held up a scissors she had been carrying. You know, your hair. Moira looked a little sheepish, clearly recognizing Violet's reticence. Bridget, who had still been silent, placed a hand on her friend's shoulder. I did tell you, didn't I? But you said you heard this place was a mite less dogmatic. We still hold to the important traditions. Moira had moved behind Violet. Could you take your hood off and cap off, please? I'll be quick. You wanted to follow me, right? Of course I did. Bridget tugged her own hood aside, revealing short hair. You already had yours done then. I took my vows not 2 months ago. Then I'll need to do yours. Well, if it helped her. Violet was sniffling. It wouldn't. Bridget began to weep as well. I looked down the line of sisters. Everyone looked rather tense. I stared ahead as Violet finally relented. She slowly removed her hood and cap, exposing her voluminous hair. Thought I was just having the robe would be enough. If it's any comfort, you don't have to keep shearing it. Not here. Really? Really? Very well then. Moira began to cut the young woman's hair. Both Violet and Bridget began to weep as the bishop began reciting the ceremonial vows. I tried my best to stay present, but I could not. The words were piercing my mind like hooks. I felt as if I was being dragged into the past by insistent memories. These two novices were taking but simple vows, but it was all so close to what I remembered. I began to feel at ease. I closed my eyes attempting to fight the feeling, but the room began to feel as if it was spinning. I opened my eyes again, desperate to right myself, but the sudden stop made me feel as if I had lurched to a halt and... The next thing I remember is the stone floor rising to meet my face. So, bad memories, I take it. At least she's not spitting up black gunk or whatever, bile. I woke to a familiar scene, the chapel ceiling above me, and Moira's worried face hovering a few inches from mine. Hello? Hello, Sister Hedwig? I could hear a raucous laughter coming from somewhere. What is that? Ignore them. Focus on me. Can you hear me? Yes. Yes, I can hear you. Good. Do you remember my name? Sister Moira. Just checking. She dragged me to my feet and patted me on the back. I felt deeply embarrassed to have fallen faint in service once again, but it looked as if nobody else seemed to mind. The laughter was coming from Bridget and Flora, who were pointing not at me, but at Violet, who looked patently ridiculous with a half-shaven head. Violet was laughing too, albeit more nervously than the other two. Stop, it doesn't look that silly. It does. You should let her keep it like that. Settle down, everyone. She had retrieved her scissors. I'm gonna make sure Hedwig is well. Could somebody else finish sharing this one? Superior stepped forward and accepted the scissors somewhat eagerly. Of course. And Margaret, Catherine, would you be so kind as to clean up after Hedwig while Moira checks up on her? She gestured to the pale pile of sick on the flagstone floor. Margaret shot me a withering smile. Certainly, Sue. Moira jogged over to me and put an arm around my shoulder and pulled me toward the door. I observed the newcomers as we passed. Violet seemed to be more at peace now. She offered the rest of her hair up to the superior, who smiled warmly and continued to work at cutting it off. Both Bridget and Violet continued to weep, but as they brushed their faces of tears, I could see that they were smiling. I was full of fear and worry and shame. I was certainly frightened that Limbarrow might not be the right place for them. But watching them fade into the shadow beyond the chapel door as Moira escorted me away, I felt so happy for them. Ah, new victims indeed. Naked as the day. Moira led me up the stairs to the dormitory. I almost protested. After all, what if Eustace was there right now, scrounging around the missing book, but never found the chance? Moira ushered me into my room gently and closed the door behind us. On the bed, if you please. I sat down at her command. How are you feeling? Rather lightheaded, I must admit. It's been a while since this last happened, has it not? I believe so. Wait here a moment. She disappeared from the room before I could protest. She reappeared almost instantly with a little pouch. I recognized the smell instantly. Enta? Would that help? It would certainly help your breath after all that. Oh. I took some of the leaves and began to chew, feeling embarrassed once again. Now, let me see. Any strenuous physical activity today? Not that I can recall, just walking to and from the stream with all of you. Well, you also ran back and forth to retrieve Eustace, who wasn't around. What have you eaten today? The same as you. And to drink? Wine with breakfast. Again, I believe the same as you. That's right. You're not going to squeeze me all over again, are you? Would you like me to? This is a typical humoral imbalance, I think. You're exploring more outside, and you were clearly very emotional at the ceremony. The spirit did prattle on a bit, didn't she? That'd flare anyone's temper up. I dare say you've been generating more yellow bile than your body is used to. And out it came. Oh, at least it's yellow and not dark. What should I do? Rest, same as always. I can try my best, I suppose. I feel awful. Those girls must think I'm a strange creature indeed. Oh, don't worry so much. Anyway, try and join us for dinner, but don't push yourself. Right? Yes. She smiled warmly and turned to leave. Wait. I had a real opportunity here that I didn't want to miss. While I have you, I've been curious, I suppose, about what happened the morning Catherine was found. I've actually been collecting everyone's stories, so I can fill in the gap, I suppose. I thought it might be a nice way to honor her memory, to finish her work. Moira smiled, but she looked a little glassy-eyed. She wiped her eyes with her sleeve. You're very thoughtful. There isn't much to tell. We had actually all been in the Misericorde the night before, and I was very tired afterward. I nearly slept through Eustace banging on everyone's door. Don't tell her I asked, by the way. When I brought it up with her, she was a little touchy. Oh, poor Eustace. Not to worry, I won't. Thank you. That's clever. Good on you. Good on you. The corners of my mouth flickered upward, and she placed a hand on my shoulder. I'd love to keep you company, Hedwig, but I think the superior would have my head if I didn't go back to the ceremony. We could talk about it more in detail another time, eh? I nodded. Get some rest now. She left my room, shutting the door quietly. I fell backward onto my pillow. I could feel the handle of the ruined knife inside. In truth, I felt normal. Not well, mind you. But my brief dizzy spell aside, I saw no reason to rest. My body agreed and refused to be still. I tossed and turned and eventually stood up, unable to coax myself into napping or even staring at the ceiling. There was something hooked inside me. Something that felt like a hook that had caught me between the legs and was tugging me out somewhere. Forced me to walk, demanding I move. Where it was dragging me, I had no idea. All I knew was that I ought to not be still. I left my room and wandered through the dormitory hall. There was nobody here, naturally. I could have gone into any room I wanted. That's a crazy music right there. I stood outside Eustace's door. I hadn't even needed Angela to steal my notes back. I could have opened the door right now and taken whatever I wanted. I tittered to myself. Angela's room was open to me as well. I could just claim the book for myself before she had a chance to give it to me. I would have no reason to, but the look on her face might be amusing. Compelled to move again, I bounded out of the dormitories and onto the landing. No doubt the bishop was reading those two girls their vows. I had the run of the abbey to myself for some time, it seemed. I stopped in front of the library door, resisting the tug of the line for just a moment. Oh, thank you. Good. Yes, let's go back to this. Eustace was still missing. I held my hand out to the door handle, then thought better of it. Wow, is the door being more colorful? Okay. If Eustace was anywhere, it was at the library. I hadn't been able to find her before, but where else would she be? Organizing her books or God knows what else. I had the whole abbey to myself, minus the library and minus the chapel. I was by myself. I suppose I must believe what people say about Limbarrow's wine, mustn't I? I wouldn't be able to tell you any of this without it. Oh wait, is this the Menta she took? I was yanked away from the library door and down the second floor hallway. Where to go? What to do? I could do anything. I could go anywhere. She's high. Oh, I almost forgot. I was like, wait, isn't the Menta gonna make her high? And look what happened. I wanted to go outside. I wanted to touch a tree. I wandered toward the spot where I'd seen the ghastly figure with the flaming sword. I could take the stairs down to the outer courtyard from there, but there was a nasty smell coming from beyond the big door. Ick. Foul. And I didn't particularly fancy getting into a fight with the door the way Flora had. I retreated back toward the staircase near the dorms and practically flew down them. I was being pulled by a thread guided so firmly. I could do whatever I wanted, and I wanted to go outside. Nobody could see me, if only they could have. I suddenly felt quite warm despite the cool winter's air. It would snow soon. Everyone kept reminding me of that. This would be my last chance to enjoy the grass for a long time, to feel the ground. Even the stone floors and walls of the abbey might be too cold to feel comfortably soon, and I realized. As I jogged through the courtyard, I did something unthinkable. I have no excuse. I paused for a moment and removed all my clothes save for my hood and cap. Of course you would! Oh my god, I hope you don't get caught. I hastily balled them into a pile. I did not care where I was, I just needed to be rid of them for a moment in this small window of freedom I had. For just a moment, the hook inside of me relaxed. The flagstone felt so welcoming on my feet, then my hands and my knees as I fell to the floor, my stomach and my back. The touch of stone felt so welcoming. I scarcely cared where I was. I was surrounded by stone, enveloped in brick, some of it smooth, some of it rough, and all of it inviting. I crawled and rolled, and laughed, and felt blissful. Then my innards tightened again, and I felt the hook pull taut. I was off again, through the nondescript halls, letting my hands linger on the walls I walked as I was drawn outside. Are you still naked? Outside. I felt gravel under my feet, then the gravel gave way to grass. The incessant pull continued. I broke into a full sprint, lest it rip my guts out. I leapt into the tall greenery like water and laughed. I rolled onto my back and gazed into the sky where the clouds were darkening. I stayed like that for a moment, giddy and dizzy and full of thrills. The yanking sensation had subsided, although I still could not see what had been dragging me out here. Here was where it all wanted me to be, though clearly. A single raindrop fell into my forehead, and I began to laugh. This was perfect. This was total bliss. I brought myself to my feet, the tall grass brushing against my thighs. I held my hands aloft. Give me more, I begged the heavens. Give me more. It had begun to rain. I could feel each drop as it pelted my skin, and could trace each one's path as it traveled down my body. The rain grew faster, and yet I could still count for each raindrop. I could follow each tiny ball of water as it ran from my face to my legs, from the tips of my fingers down my arms before it rolled off my breast, until there wasn't a single dry patch of skin. There was thunder in the distance. Hedwig? I thought I heard my name underneath the rolling rumble. Hedwig! I finally turned my head towards the sky to see. Having fun, are we? Who's this character? The earth was ever so slightly damp. I could feel myself sinking into the dirt. A shadowy figure peered at me from above. Look at the state of you. Who are you? I can't see you. It's me. You had me scared half to death. Come on, get up. The hook was gone. So was the doppelganger who had been pulling on it. I needed Eustace's help to rise to my feet. I felt very cold and very damp and utterly mortified. Well then, I don't suppose I need to tell you just how much more leverage I have against you now, huh? I burst into tears. You can't tell anyone about this. Relax. I was only joking. I suppose our relationship isn't built for joking these days, is it? Sorry. Eustace was walking me back toward the abbey slowly. I suddenly felt very aware of my nakedness. Not in the freeing way that I had minutes before, but in a dreadful, vulnerable sense. I tried to make a break for it and sprint back to the abbey to retrieve my pile of clothes, but Eustace kept a firm hold of my wrist. Calmly. And try not to cry. The last thing we want is for everyone to come running, yeah? Oh, this is a new personality? Because her name is now in a different font? Or perhaps you wouldn't mind? How did you find me? I finished what I was doing in the library and was on my way back to the chapel to get an earful from the superior. Then I saw a bundle of clothes in the corner and thought, well, nothing good, I'll say that much. Ugh, do you smell that, by the way? We were close to the wall beneath the great wooden doors. Yes, I can. Awful, isn't it? Horrible. Never mind that, though. God, of all the people to find her, it's Eustace. I was kind of hoping it would be, what's her name? Oh, I'm forgetting her name already. The odd one that gave her the ment in the first place. Let's get you dressed first. I was doing my best to cover myself up with one free arm, but it wasn't working very well. We crossed over the grass back onto the gravel path. Did you enjoy how that feels beneath your feet? Ah, it's the other her. Okay. Leave me alone. What's the matter with you? Quiet down. I was distraught, but it was nothing compared to what I was about to feel. We turned the corner into the cloister, where the gravel path met the flagstone flooring. My robes were still there in a heap, but there was somebody else there too. The very last person I would have wanted to see me in this state. Hello, Sister Eustace. This is rather interesting. I instinctively tried to flee, but Eustace wouldn't let go of my arm. This isn't the time, Angela. I think Hedwig might need to see Moira. Moira returned from attending to her not long ago. Hedwig was perfectly fine according to her, so I think you might be in quite a predicament. Eustace finally let go of my hand. Perhaps she was aware of how it made things look. I saw Hedwig's closest scar on the floor and was worried for her safety. Luckily, I think she might have just been having a bit of fun. In the rain alone? I know it sounds absurd. It sounds deranged. She shouted so loud that it scared me. It sounds impossible. Forgive me, Sister Eustace, but it sounds like the hurried tale of a woman who knows she has been caught. She said this last word with a disturbing sense of relish, as if she had rolled it around her mouth to savor the taste before letting it go. Underneath my embarrassment, I could feel rage building. What had happened to Angela remaining beneath Eustace's notice? It is the truth. Huh. You know, this reminds me of several other truths you have told me I simply have to believe. Truths so strange that they simply must be true. You encounter things so bizarre that they must be true quite often, don't you, Sister Eustace? And so many of them seem to revolve around states of undress in the honor of the women around you. One could say that it beggars belief. There's no reason to bring anything like that into this. Hedwig. Is there anything I should tell the superior? I suddenly realized just how difficult it would be to communicate exactly what I needed from Angela. Whatever she had suggested to me about availability had been overrun by something else. Panic set it alongside embarrassment. How could I convince Angela that this had all been a part of my investigation? It hadn't, of course, but that was the idea I needed to replace whatever anger or concern had taken over her senses. Sister Angela, Eustace is telling the truth. I could scarcely bring myself to hold my head up straight, much less look at Angela in the eyes. But I did my utmost to maintain eye contact. Think far packed, I attempted to say to her silently. She stared back at me, her eyes narrowed and piercing. Think of our pact. I knew what she might say in response. Is this not evidence enough? She opened her mouth, and I was terrified that she was about to announce that she had won the argument I had been imagining in my head. It would plead you to not tell the superior. What Eustace says is true. I experienced a spell of madness. You see, I'd never felt the rain before. Not anywhere but on my hands and face, I suppose. I was overcome with a childish desire to play. The snow is coming soon. It's silly, but I wondered how much longer the chance to do something like this would be available. I had just finished up working in the library. I came downstairs and saw a pile of clothes, and I ran outside to find Hedwig in a state of delirium. That is all. That's the truth. What a funny story. Hilarious. But one of those kinds of stories that's only funny to the people who were there. Huh. I imagine it would be amusing to the others, but I trust your judgment. For now, at least. She eyed me up and down, and I was too exhausted to cover my shame. Get dressed then, Hedwig. I hope this is your one and only bout with this delirium. No, technically this would be her second, I think. It would be a shame if you froze to death when it snows. I nodded and she turned to leave. Eustace stood and watched me get dressed. She stood blocking the view to and from the chapel across the cloister, which I somewhat appreciated. She muttered quietly as I fixed my robe. Wouldn't want anyone else seeing. Or perhaps she would. Could be a thrill, I suppose. Thoroughly humiliated, I indicated to Yusa that I was ready to move. I'm learning so many interesting things about you. There's nothing to have learned from this. I was ill and... I was just ill, that's all. I find it hard to believe that this was a completely random whim of yours. It honestly was. And I think you should tell her about the Menta. What did Angela mean, by the way, about you and honor and so on? I think perhaps we have each given an opportunity to not learn anything about each other. I think that's fair, don't you? Huh? Very well, Hedwig. She was smiling, but I could sense the tension behind her eyes. We began to walk towards the staircase to the upper hall. You know, Hedwig, I find this side of you far more interesting than your busybody tendency. If this is all some bizarre way of filling that hole, you have my full support. What does support for a momentary bouts of madness look like? I'm good at keeping secrets. Oh, clearly you are. I'm keeping more than one of yours now. We stopped at the top of the stairs. I turned to face her, feeling wary. I could not believe that she was still attempting to threaten me in this manner. Moments ago, I thought we had reached some kind of stalemate. Yep, and you went and ruined it when you decided to get high and lose your mind. I wish you wouldn't be so cruel, Eustace. Cruel? I disagree. Firm. I do what I must. You have made your point several times over. You won. I have not continued what you asked me to concede. That's excellent. And I'll take every opportunity to keep it that way until I am satisfied. We can be friends in the meantime. After all, if you're not doing what I asked you not to do, what do you have to fear? Smile and allow my paranoid indulgences. We'll laugh about all this years down the road. I don't hope so. Eustace bade me farewell with a curt nod and empty smile and turned to head back down the staircase. I glanced at the library door. I had half a mind to dash inside and see whatever it was she had been busy with before coming to find me in the field, but I thought better of it. I mean, at this point, you may as well. You lost way too much already. I staggered back to my room. I felt as if I had just run in circles for hours. My breath was shallow and ragged, and I was dripping with sweat. I entered my room and made for my bed. I did need that rest Moira had recommended after all. With trepidation, I removed my clothing once more. I was alone again, but I was still filled with an overwhelming sense of shame and dread as my skin was exposed to the air. The strange driving sensation, the hook, was back. My doppelganger's pull was weak as she attempted to drag me to the open window, or back into the hall to the door. I could resist it, but it was there. No matter how little effort it took to suppress, I could feel that it was there. I could still feel it in truth. Another reason I belong in here. As I climbed into bed, I began to weep. Some threshold had been crossed. It was as if I had discovered I was afflicted with some permanent disease. I begged God to free me from the line I was stuck on, but the feeling would not leave. I knew that no matter which direction my speared loins would be pulled, the final destination would be hell. My head hit the pillow and I jerked upright. I had avoided colliding with the dull knife inside, but the whole thing was still damp. I let out a wail and flipped it over angrily. As I buried my face in the dry side and set about wetting it with my kind of tears. When sleep came, I wished it would take me permanently. What's wrong? Do you find these details hard to believe? Well, I stand by it all. That is what happened. I was being cajoled, perhaps even haunted by a lascivious doppelganger. Listen, this is how I must tell the story. This isn't an embellishment or a fantasy. It is simply how I see it. Anyway, sleep was not merciful. You know, even if she said it wasn't an embellishment, she said this is how I see it. That means she can see it any other way. It doesn't necessarily have to be to her. That could be how it's shown, but from another point of view, another perspective, the truth could have been different. When I awoke, I had a headache, a fitting punishment for the desire to throw away God's gift. I dragged myself to my feet and looked out the window. The sun had just set from the looks of things. I had likely missed supper, although I didn't much mind. I had very little hunger, and I'm sure that my presence would have made Bridget and Violet's first meal at the Abbey a disaster. I sighed and set about getting dressed once again. I still had to meet with Angela, a prospect that did not thrill me in the slightest after our earlier encounter. I winced as my frock draped over me, and Margaret and Catherine had invited me to speak to them as well. I had so many appointments to keep, and not a shred of the will necessary to follow through. I adjusted my hood and exhaled deeply. I was dressed and as ready as I ever would be to meet my unlikely investigation partner. I stepped down to the dorm hall. A fire had been lit, but there was nobody lingering here. I could hear voices coming from the landing, however. I walked down to the hallway and saw a gaggle of sisters staring in front of the Misericorde door. Sorry, not staring, standing. I think it is only fair that we let our new sisters in tonight. It would be such a fitting end to their first day here. I'm not so sure. Is it really appropriate? Why wouldn't it be? I'm the same age as Flora, and she says she's been in before. I would certainly enjoy it. Me too. It's only fair that I get in too. What do you mean only fair? Because I haven't been in ages. You missed out once, which is how it usually works anyway. Right, so it's my turn to go in then. Glad we agree. Eustace sighed. So that's Bridget, Violet, and Flora, myself, Eustace, Darcy. Come to think of it, can we not add one more tonight? If half are allowed inside any time, our ranks have grown enough to accept another inside. Ah, Hedwig, would you like to join us? I'll give my seat up for somebody who didn't get a chance last time. Adele looked disappointed but didn't say anything. As I began to descend the stairs, Margaret and Catherine emerged from below. Ah, Margaret, Catherine. We have one open space in the Misericorde tonight. We have prior engagements, alas. That's right, you'll join us later, Hedwig? Yes. I continued down the stairs to escape any further logistical conversations. I could hear Adela complaining out loud that they might have to invite Angela at the rate things were going. I wanted to shout back up the stairs to share the good news that she too would be busy tonight, but I kept it to myself.
When you want to get off the darkest ground, but gravity pulls you straight down.